What are the cool kids who peaked in high school doing now? Dad. Really sucks as the reason he peaked in high school is because not long after he started a family and then got cancer shortly after. He was that super popular star football player that got along with everyone and never bullied anyone and always tried to lift others up. The guy was genuinely one of the best dudes I've ever met. That sucks. I remember a guy like that. The football star. He would break fights up while we were all standing there like idiots and cowards. I hope he's not dead. I had a schoolmate like this. Even being a cool kid surrounded by nothing but my bullies as his and my heart worked over my fit fingers and my best friends were fixed. He could tell when they were being too much. After high school, he went on to college, like everyone else. But pretty sure his first dream goal in life was to get a motorcycle. And he did. I think it was sophomore year when he got into his fatal accident. It's always the good ones who die young. A lot of the high school tropes didn't really apply at my school. There was no cool kids group or anything like that. Everyone just had their own cliques based on their activities. Athletes tended to hang out with each other more, simply because they spent a lot of time together at practices. But the nerds, AP class smart kids, were invited to the parties as well, and no one really got bullied. Jocks loved the nerds from what I could tell. They helped them with homework, and not in a do-it-for-me way, but more a tutoring way. So IDK what you would even define as the cool kids in that situation. Some nerds burn out and are bums, and some of the jocks are doing very well. The AP kids and the varsity athletes in my high school had significant overlap. Yeah, we kind of had cliques, but when your graduating class is only about 100 people, there's a huge amount of overlap between people who are athletes, academics, or just kind of there. Not the same level of cool kids. Gonna be honest here, most of my former classmates who are considered cool and therefore popular have gone on to live moderately successful, if not outright successful lives. There are a few who went down an unfortunate path of addiction or got involved with the wrong people. But for the most part, the popular kids grew up with a good social life and started adulthood with connections. I was a quiet, shy, straight-A student. Would have been valedictorian if not for moving at the end of junior year. I had all the book smarts, but none of the connections nor social skills. Once you're out of school, that matters a lot more than teachers or guidance counselors let on. While many of my cool classmates were starting their careers early, I honestly struggled for years after school. It was only after pushing myself to be more social and placed more importance on connections that things started to get better. Anyways, Reddit is looking more for the unsuccessful stories. So, 1 became an addict and passed of OD. 3 that I know got pregnant during high school. 2 of them had a rough time as they raised their children as a single parent. The other got married just after graduation and is still married to the same guy over 20 years later. Funny enough, all 3 became nurses. 1 kid was expelled senior year after streaking through the high school. A dumb decision he made after being pressured to do it as a dare by his friends. About 10 years later, I hired him as part of the night crew at a tire warehouse. We lost contact after the company was sold to a competitor, and they terminated everyone. Though I've heard he is now in a leadership role at Chewy. The rest that I know are all doing well, all things considered. A lot of the cool people from my high school went on to become administrative assistants, real estate agents, recruiters, sales at car dealerships, and insurance adjusters. We lived in a pretty high-income neighborhood as well, so a lot of them aren't able to afford their lifestyle. It makes sense, and I think this happens often where your high school life is funded by your parents who made it, and then you don't have the skills to repeat it. That being said, most of their jobs are very people-based, soft-skill jobs. On the other hand, we had one that became a pretty sizable company, N300K ARA. I was a quite social person as well. Not the popular kid, but the athlete who did computer science. So I had an in with the non-social kids as well as the social kids. Kinda makes sense. When I look at my job as a product manager, working with business leadership and engineers as my day-to-day. The cool ones ended up losing their hair and getting humbled real quick by how hard the real world doesn't care about how they peaked as a teenager. The cool ones that were actually cool are off living their best lives, upper middle class in this economy, raising wonderful families, and generally being unproblematic and still cool. Yep, I live in France, and it's always strange to me how American cool kids in high school don't have a cool life after that. The cool kids I knew from my high school are now script girl on a big TV show, psychologist, campsite director, theater director, and landscape gardener with his own business. They all were considered the cool kids, living the best lives you could even imagine. Wealth, friends, free time, hobbies, travel, exotic cars, and designer drugs. Everything just kept going their way. It's the only life they've ever known. You'll get downvoted for this, but this is the real answer. Spoiled little shits never get their just desserts. So they didn't peak in high school. if they still living their best life, still talking about their varsity jacket like it's a personality trait and telling their kids, I was kind of a big deal back then, LMAO. Whenever I go back to my parents' house with my wife like once or twice a year, I, at some point, put on my Letterman's jacket and put my arm around her, ask her to the movies while sipping on a beer. She groans every time, and I get a nice chuckle. Then back in the closet it goes until the next visit, never to be spoken of. 101. Looking down on people you went to high school with now that you're all grown up is some next level pettiness. We're all just trying to do our best with the hands we've been dealt, whether we're teenagers or adults. Who TF decides who's who anyway? Such a juvenile, imaginary label. The people who get off on this kind of crap are the ones who quote George Carlin talking about how everyone is stupid or talk about idiocracy constantly. What makes people like this decide to randomly belittle people or fantasize about them suffering? It's sickening. Completely agree. Not such thing as tool, other than being a nice person and a good sport. Only popular. And within the popular, there's good and bad people. No need to be comparing yourself to them to make yourself feel better about not having friends in high school. Still living in our hometown? Spreading the same rumors? Eating at the same spots we ate at in HS? Still going to Ace football games on Friday nights? And then doing lots of coke with their same group of friends in that one friend's garage after the game while their kids run around getting drunk and bullying other kids. You want to talk about culture shock? I was born and raised in Southeast Michigan. Overall, part of the larger Metro Detroit area. I didn't realize how big of a deal high school football is in many parts of the country. I've been to 2 Ace games in my life. One was 8th grade, the other was cheering on my niece on the cheerleading squad as an adult. If I didn't have family on the team or on the cheer squad, why would I go? It was weird to learn how many people in smaller towns take high school football seriously. The real question is, what are all the people saying these things about people doing with their lives? What are they doing with their lives? I think it's a fantasy for some PPI that the cool or popular PPI or one PPI or insert ADD or, whatever in high school are going to be living in a basement, whatever bad outcome. The truth is, a lot of them were popular for a reason and they do really well. They mature or not, like any other person too. Last time I talked to him, one popular guy from my high school was a root salesman, selling cigarettes to convenience stores. That seems like the lowest of sales job hells to me. Meanwhile, of us nerds, whom this popular guy spent his time bullying, one started a successful medical research company. One retired at 40 from a .com startup. One was a vice president of an internationally famous architecture firm. And another is a comfortably retired engineering professor with a couple dozen patents to his name. Nerds win this round. Okay, 80s movie fan fiction. Chill out. Definitely not on Reddit wondering what you're doing. 20 years after your high school graduation, you're on Reddit still wondering what the cool kids are doing? As I high-five my boy and pop a collar on my 20-year-old varsity jacket, then I hop in my minivan and head straight to work where I'm overworked and underpaid. Yeah, I got all the girls in high school, brah. Now I have 3 kids and 4 baby mamas. Fat baby mamas and fat babies. I'm still climbing to the top, son. I haven't even reached the mountaintop. At 40 years old, climbing is pretty tough and it hurts. But when I do make it to the top, I hope there's a cliff with a large drop, because I plan to launch myself head first off that mudfucker. So take that non-cool person. Dead or in prison for the most part. The cool kids at my school were all thugs and gang members. Let's see. One is in prison for life for shooting and killing a military veteran who also went to our school. He was a senior when we were freshmen, in a robbery gone wrong. What's crazy is this guy was a class clown type. Really stupid, but not violent or angry like others. Never would have guessed he'd murder someone. One was stabbed to death in a parking lot, in the middle of the day during a drug deal gone wrong. Don't feel bad for him. In middle school when he was 17, and the rest of us were 12, he bragged about how he and his friends tortured a dog to death, cutting open its chest so they could see its heart beating. Everyone on Facebook still mourned him. He was an evil person. Another died during a car chase. A rival gang member chased him and his friend, and while driving both cars exchanged gunfire until his car crashed, and he and his friend died. The guy chasing them was arrested. No idea who the other 2 guys are. A huge group of guys that went to my schools, elementary, middle, and high, are in prison for life because they shot up a car with another guy from our high school in that car, with machine guns. His girlfriend and her 2 or 3-year-old sister was in it. The guy survived, but the girlfriend and baby did not. A different group are in prison for life because they stole weapons and got in a shootout with police. I think 2 were killed, but I didn't know them. I did know 4 of them, and they all survived. What's crazy about this is that one of them was in a class I took senior year that had a bunch of freshmen. It because I needed a specific credit, something I can't fully remember. But this kid, was a loudmouth class clown type. Like the first guy I mentioned. He definitely had that wannabe gangster vibe, but he was so goofy. I guess the goofy ones feel like they have something to prove. Another guy, last I heard, has been in and out of prison. Knew him since we were like 7 or 8. Well, that's how old the guy was on the way was not true in the type of canyon. But he's robbed dollar stores, gas stations, and other places and seems to always get caught. I stopped looking at the news and I deleted all my social media years ago, so there's likely more deaths I'm unaware. There was one guy who are popular that did from a car wreck and nothing gang related, really sad. Knew him since I was 7 too. Another died from heart failure in his 20s. Knew him since then too. Another accidentally killed a little kid, but he's not in prison and seems to be on good terms with the family. Knowing him, it was definitely a car wreck. Freak accident. I don't want to share the details for privacy, but I know for sure he's forever traumatized. There's plenty of other violent conclusions to people I went to school with, but I only listed the popular kids that were considered cool or just popular in general. There are some cool ones that I have no idea what happened to them, but based on how they're either in prison, dead, or maybe turned their life around. There was this one former gang leader who was kind of popular after her fought and beat up the first guy I listed. Half the school loved him, the other half hated him. He was always a really nice guy. Last I saw him, he turned his life around, which seemed like something he was doing from what I noticed. He was in a few of my classes. I remember seeing him at a gas station a few years after we graduated. He had a wife and a kid, and he was dressed up really nicely. I think they might have been attending church. It's been so long now I can't remember, but I remember feeling really happy for him. No idea if he did anything bad in the past, but he seemed like he at least wanted to be a good person. But it's been over 15 years since I last saw him. Oh, there was this other popular guy who, like a straight A honor student, and all the teachers and other students loved him. He was really nice towards me and would always talk about video games and Dragon Ball Z, but he was also a drug dealer. Somehow I don't think he's in prison. I imagine he got a regular career somewhere after college and is a millionaire or something. That guy was smart, cool, athletic. It's like he was using cheat codes. If weren't a drug dealer, it'll swear he was the main character or something. I went to school with him, was 3-time state champion wrestler, went to wrestle on scholarship at a local university, prom king. When we were about 21, it came out he had been molesting kids at wrestling camps and having underage relationships with boys he met through wrestling. A bunch of people were shocked, but I had always thought it was weird how during senior year he was hanging out with freshman boys instead of with the rest of the seniors. Mentoring them. Disgusting. Anyway, last I heard, because there's not social media of his anymore, is that he lived about 4 hours away, is a sex offender, and worked as a bouncer at bars. I had a bully in high school who harassed me at every opportunity and threatened to end my life on numerous occasions. He very frequently told me that he would outlive me and outsucceed me in every aspect of life. I defended myself once and told him that he'd likely just drop out of college because he's too stupid for it. And then he'd fall back on thinking he's cut out for the military, but hell'd be too weak for it. And when that also failed, hell'd just be the sad and lonely loser he is destined to be. He laughed it off, but he did follow that path in life, minus being alone, since he didn't make it that far. He got into several fights after being booted from the military, including slashing some innocent man in the face with a knife. He spiraled out even further after that, and ultimately died from a TBI while jacked up on cocaine. He's only one of 3 people I've ever wished ill will upon. Remembering all the torment, the only reply I have to his passing is, one asshole. My school didn't really have cool kids, but one of the standoffish pretty girls is now a realtor in my hometown. I actually always liked her, despite never being close. She wasn't mean, but she also wasn't friendly. I always thought she was a chill person though. I felt bad for her honestly, since she matured hella early compared to the rest of us, and guys were constantly being gross to her because she was hot, had big tits. She gained a lot of weight since then, but I think it suits her. She comes off as much more approachable. She honestly looks happier in her business card photo than she did while in school. I'm glad she stuck around, honestly. Most people from our school left the area after graduating due to lack of affordable housing options. If I run into her, I'll definitely see if she'd be open to getting a drink and catching up, or shit-talk the assholes who harassed her. I was definitely one of the weird nerdy girls, but we never had any bad blood between us that I know of, so she might be down. She went all in on environmental activism in college, spending 4 years screaming about climate change and organizing protests and neglecting academics. Now, she's completely burned out and utterly disillusioned, feeling like she was just a useful tool for some of the more established organizers. She still believes in the cause, but the constant fighting and the slow pace of change, combined with the feeling of being exploited, just drained her. She is still trying to figure out how to put it all together again. One of my closest friends during high school, in my eyes, peaked in HS. She has been chasing being an influencer since 2011 at least. She currently has 1,400 followers on IG. She tried everything to go viral. Paid subscribers beginning in the early IG days when you could still do that. She clearly pays for engagement on her posts, and what little she gets is from bot fitness influencer accounts. She's a grifter, and a pathetically bad one, oscillating between posting things about being unbothered by her haters. Most people don't hate her. Most people simply don't have the patience anymore for her narcissism, and being grateful for her Greek god husband. He's literally just a guy, and talking about the grind. She's tried peddling herself as a life coach, a beauty guru, a fitness influencer, a weight loss influencer, not disclosing that the weight gain was literally just from being pregnant, a skin influencer, care influencer, not disclosing that her limited acne issues were also from pregnancy, showing off her Cadillac, a 2,505 that she strategically tries to hide the year of. She's tried being a mommy influencer, a model. She paid a photographer to take action shots, an actress, got one gig at a small out-of-the-way community theater years ago, health coach, no clients, and now gives out health advice as a future doctor. She intends to attend a holistic health university that has no pre-requirements, informal admissions, and is non-accredited. You may read this and wonder why I give a shit. Well, it's because a lot of the things that she has tried to do successfully are things that she made me feel really shitty about growing up. If I got cast in a show, she would brag about how she had considered auditioning, but it wasn't worth her time or wasn't challenging enough. If I voiced I wanted to be a nurse and actively in school pursuing my nursing prerequisites, then she would explain that she was interested in being a doctor. There's so much more to do. I struggled with hereditary cystic acne, and she was constantly belittling my struggle and telling me it was because of my diet or other outside factors, when it absolutely was just hereditary cystic acne that I spent 10 years exploring solutions for with my dermatologists, aestheticians, and other. I was a little chubby growing up, and when I tried to pursue being more active and losing weight, she turned it into a competition, and she would volunteer to go on runs with me, but run faster than me, and then insist we leave because she was done sooner. She didn't help, she just made me feel cruddier all the time. When I was voted for prom court, she encouraged me to deter the nomination because it was stupid, even though she wanted to be on court. So I keep up with your antics. Last I heard of a few of them, here's where they stood. Prom queen and king. Waitress at local bar divorced. He works at a small car shop in the little town. Other popular people? At 10-year reunion, many were still using mom and dad's credit cards and cars. Star lacrosse player works in family crab house after he lost scholarships due to him drunkenly performing a hit and run. Most never left the small town. If they did, it was for college and they came back to get a position at mom or dad's work. Many just went to college to find a partner. They don't use their degrees at all. Not sure. None of them ever talked to me. JK. Definitely was way cool in my younger years, and partying young ended up escalating to hard drugs and full-blown addiction. Earned a lot of scars emotionally and physically along the way, and ultimately found long-term recovery at 25. I'm 33 now and have a good career, marriage, own my home, and have a great relationship with family and friends. I think maybe I'm even cooler now, having earned a lot of stripes in the school of hard knocks. I'm a pretty normal corporate office type guy. I just have some questionable tattoos and plenty of stories that are NSFW.
Thank you for watching. Write comments, put likes. Do not forget to watching other videos.